Good afternoon. Today is Monday, January 22nd, 2024. This Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is called to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Griffin.
Here.
McCormick.
Present.
Bishop.
Here.
Cantwell. Harrison. Casey.
Present.
Valencia.
Present.
Santana. Spencer. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Two pieces that I need. One, I need to send back to committee. That is ordinance number 36-2024, which is the Transformative Arts Project Fund. I need this to go back to Health, Human Services, and the Arts Committee. The other one, Councilman Starr has not had a conversation as of yet with the community development folks. So ordinance number 1368-2023 by Councilmember Starr, Hairston, and Griffin by departmental request. That one will be held too. So just want to make sure everybody knows those two will be held. Yes. And please, can we please note Councilwoman Santana has an excused absence today. Thank you. All right. That being said, we're going to go to resolution number 1301-2023 by Council Members Polensek, Bishop, Harrison, and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency resolution declaring it necessary to design, inspect, reconstruct, repair, and/or install roadways, sidewalks, driveway aprons, curbs, including adjustments of castings and landscaping if necessary, storm sewer structures, and other necessary appurtenances encroaching upon the public right-of-way on the Euclid Beach Boulevard entire street and East 159th Street from Euclid Beach Boulevard to Lakeshore Boulevard. Director.
Mr. Chairman, so as you mentioned, this is for an assessment for improvements to a roadway. It's for East 159th Street and Euclid Beach Boulevard. And so just to put people in the right location, it's in Collinwood where the Euclid Beach Arch goes over the roadway. This roadway was built by a private developer, but it was not built to city standards. So while the roadway was dedicated, which is what happens before the construction, a letter was sent to the private developer to say that it was not accepted because it was not built to city standards, which means that the private developer was required to maintain it as a private roadway. Fast forward, the property owners have changed. The roadway has gone into disrepair, and we've determined that the best way to move forward with an improvement is through an assessment process. This is the first of many legislative steps that will come before City Council. This is a resolution of intent of necessity, and it also outlines that the split of costs would be 50-50. It outlines that there's a 10-year payback period with 10 annual payments at a 3.9% interest per annum, or the owner can pay all in within 30 days of the assessing ordinance. But we went through this in detail with a PowerPoint presentation at two different committees. Happy to get into any details here. Rick Switowski is with me. He knows the details as well. There's 9 owners, and the cost would be proportionate to their frontage of the roadways.
Thank you. This was vetted in DPS and Municipal Services. Councilman Harrison, Councilman Bishop, do you have any comments?
Yes, Mr. President, we vetted this in MSP and we recommend it for passage.
Thank you. Councilman Harrison. Fully support. All right. The local council person, do you support this? Councilman Polensek.
Mr. Chairman, honorable colleagues, yes, the road is in terrible condition, and the only way we can really get it fixed is by doing an assessment and assessing the adjacent commercial property owners to make the enhancement. There's 1,000 senior citizens and handicapped folks that live north of that arch, the roadway, that are dependent upon that to get out to Lakeshore Boulevard. So it's incumbent that this road be enhanced, be improved, and the sidewalks and appurtenances all be improved as well. So I wholeheartedly support it.
Thank you so much. Seeing no other questions, resolution number 1301-2023 stands approved. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you. Next is ordinance number 1364-2023 by Councilmembers Polinsik and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety to apply for and accept a grant from the United States Department of Justice's Bureau of Justice Assistance for the fiscal year Connect and Protect grant to enter into various written standard purchase and requirement contracts and authorizing the director to enter into one or more contracts with various agencies, entities, or individuals to implement the grant and accept the gift of a portion of the cash match from the Cleveland Foundation. Director and Chief and Director, please proceed.
Thank you, President. Mr. Rest of Council, give me one moment. All right. If passed by council, ordinance number 1364-2023 would authorize the Director of Public Safety to apply for and accept a grant in the amount of $549,998 from the U.S. Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Assistance for fiscal year 23 Connect and Protect grant. This legislation would provide funding for the modernization of the city's 911 system to better respond to crisis calls for service. This grant requires a cash match of $283,344. This grant will provide funding for the modernization, as I stated earlier, for the city's 911 system to better respond to crisis. Primary activities include hiring clinician dispatchers, providing mental health training to all dispatchers, and providing data collection software and licenses to be used for information sharing with all partner agencies. The agencies that partner with the City of Cleveland are the Adams Board of Cuyahoga County, Frontline Services, and the Cleveland Department of Public Health. The expenses to be reimbursed in year one is $68,840 for data collection software, $27,160 for travel related to training, for a total of $96,000. For year two, for personnel, $75,006 for clinician dispatchers, benefits of $23,590 for clinician dispatchers, and contracts for data collection software and training in the amount of $55,404. And this is also for overtime for partner agencies, for a total of $154,000. For year three, personnel is in the amount of $255,000 for clinician dispatchers, benefits in the amount of $80,198 for those dispatchers, contracts for database software in the amount of $30,134, and sub-awards to partner agency contracts, $218,000 for a total of $583,332. So the grant funds in total is for $549,998, with matching funds of $283,344 for a total of $833,332. The grant period is from October 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2026.
All right, thank you. Just make sure that I have this right, and I just do quick math. The approximate total amount is about $549,000 or so, right?
Yes.
And we're getting a $100,000 grant from the Cleveland Foundation directly to the City of Cleveland. In addition, the City of Cleveland is paying for the $183,334. And where is that money coming from? Is that coming from our general fund budget or which line item?
Who's that, Don? Going to bring up Don Hartsong to address it directly.
Thank you. Ms. Hartson, welcome.
Thank you. To the chair, the matching funds were budgeted in our general fund line item for the Division of Police for this coming year.
Out of which line item? Would that be training, or would that be hardware, or which line item?
I know all I know is it was put into the general fund budget, but I don't know which specific line item under the Division of Police. I think every year we submit an estimated budget for grant matches,
Okay.
and it's underneath that. I think it's a separate line item.
All right, it'd be good for us to know as we look at budgeting this year where your grant matches for the police department are, so that we could actually look at where those budget opportunities are, okay? All right. Councilman Polinsik, this was heard in public safety. Do you have any feedback?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, to my honorable colleagues, we heard it. We had questions asked. As you're aware, Mr. Chairman, this is something that we've long wanted to see happen within dispatch, to have clinically trained folks answering phone calls and being able to partake of the caller as it pertains to dealing with folks that have mental health issues. So again, we wholeheartedly support this legislation.
All right, so one of the things that I also noticed about this legislation is that it really doesn't have a cap on it. Can anybody tell us why it doesn't have a cap? Because the way that it's written, it looks as if, you know, there's no cap in the amount that can be spent on this. So technically, if we don't legislate it, then you guys will be able to just spend and continue to spend on this. Is it wise for us to put a cap on this in order for you guys not to go over any certain expended amount? I'm just, so.
Well, I'm going to make that motion that we cap it, because if that's the case, we need to have them come back to us, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, so the question is that do we have any problems capping this? Because the way that the language reads, when I go over this for my legislative aides, is that it seems like it doesn't have any cap on it.
To the chair, it appears, and again, we'll have to delve a little bit further into it, and the cap is the 833,000.
833,000?
Yes, sir.
So can we make it clear in this legislation, because I don't think the legislation reflects that, and I think you're looking at the executive summary, but I just want to make sure that the legislation effectively reflects that the cap is 850.
To the chair, it's Dawn just pointed out to me in section 1 of the legislation, it says accept a grant in the amount up to $549,000, $998, I'm sorry, and then further down into section 3, the city of Cleveland provide remaining $183,334, the cash match, which totals the $800,000 that I mentioned before. So I believe there is a cap.
So, Mr. Roberts, can you make sure before, because I'm willing to move this forward, but can you make sure with our attorneys that we do have language in there that effectively captures the cap? Yes. Okay?
Well then, Mr. Chairman.
You don't disagree with them on that?
Well, this is an easy one. I'll make a motion that we cap it at $833,000. Let me give you the exact dollar amount, $833,332.
So we have, and I think that's relatively low-hanging fruit. Councilman Polinsik has put a motion on the floor, a clarifying motion. Do we have a second for that? Councilman Harrison has a second. Is there any discussion? Director, I see you want to make a comment. Please go proceed.
Yes, so I just wanted to again highlight, section 1 does provide the grant in the language of up to amount of $549,998. And then in section 2, for the $183,000 from subfund number 01-6002-6397 is approved in all respects and shall not be changed without additional legislative authority. So that's capped at that, and the section 3 speaks of the $100,000 from the Cleveland Foundation. So the capping language is in the legislation.
Okay, in section 9, it says the cost of the contract or contracts or payments authorized by this ordinance shall be paid from the fund or funds to which are credited the grant proceeds and cash match accepted under this ordinance and from any other funds approved by the Director of Finance. And I know this is very particular, but I have people to really make sure that they help me follow through on all of this. What I am being told is that is if you get if the finance director wanted to make another source of funding available, you guys can continue to exceed that 850.
Well, Mr. Mayor, we made a motion. It's seconded. We're fine.
So we got a second in the motion. Is there any other discussion on that?
Let's move on.
All right, seeing no other discussion, all in favor of that motion, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so please proceed on that. I just want to make sure we have clarifying language on that. All right. Okay. Anything else regarding ordinance number 1364-2023? Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1364-2023 stands approved. All right, the next one is ordinance number 1369-2023 by council members Starr, Hairston, and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the directors of economic development and finance to enter into a job creation income tax credit incentive agreement with Cleveland Kitchen and/or its designee to facilitate the purpose of the provisions of this ordinance. Economic development folks, you guys have another one coming up?
We did.
Which one?
1387?
1387, 2023.
113 what?
1387, 2023. It is the,
1387.
Ohio drug.
All right, come on, let's get this one out the way if we could. We'll get it out the way. All right, ordinance number 1387-2023 by council members Polinsky and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Safety to apply for and accept a grant from the Ohio Office of Criminal Justice Services for the fiscal year 2022 Ohio Drug Law Enforcement Fund grant for the operation of the Cartel Gang Narcotics and Laundering Task Force, formerly known as the Northern Ohio Law Enforcement Task Force, authorizing the director to enter into agreements with the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Office and other entities, and authorizing the purchase by one or more contracts of one undercover police vehicle to implement the grant. Director and Chief, and please introduce the other guests that we have.
thank you, President. I'll ask everyone to introduce themselves. We have Don Hartsong, who is here with us, and Lieutenant Kincaid.
Lieutenant Kevin Kincaid. I'm the co-commander of the Signal Task Force.
Okay.
Okay, please proceed.
Okay. If passed by council, ordinance number 1387-2023 would authorize me, the Director of Public Safety, to apply for and accept a grant in the amount of $137,013.70 from the Ohio Office of Criminal Justice Services for fiscal year 2022 Ohio Drug Law Enforcement Fund grant. This legislation would provide funding for the operation of the Cartel Gang Narcotics and Laundering Task Force, also known as Signal, which was formerly known as the Northern Ohio Law Enforcement Task Force, NOLETF. This grant requires a cash match of $45,671.23. The goal of the Ohio Office of Criminal Justice Services Justice Assistance Grant is to provide funding to law enforcement agencies for operating multi-agency task forces. The City of Cleveland will be reimbursed for costs associated with the operating of Signal. The Signal is a multi-agency drug task force that brings together local and state and agents and investigators to ensure the most sophisticated investigation and prosecution resources are directed against organized drug trafficking groups. The agencies that partner with Signal include the Cleveland Division of Police, the FBI, U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Ohio, the IRS, U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, U.S. Coast Guard, Ohio Bureau of Criminal Justice, Ohio Adult Parole Authority, Ohio State Highway Patrol, Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Office, Cuyahoga County Prosecutor's Office, Ottawa County Drug Task Force, Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority Police, and the police agencies of the City of Bedford, Brooklyn, Independence, Moreland Hills, North Royalton, Parma, and Shaker Heights. Expenses to be reimbursed include, for personnel, $42,000 for officer overtime, contracts, $28,000 for police officer overtime and for partner agencies, travel in the amount of $7,000, $39,000 for equipment, that's undercover vehicle and vehicle equipment, $1,000 for office supplies, $9,870 for vehicle maintenance and GPS data fees, and $55,814.93 for buy money and surveillance costs, for a total of $182,684.93. The grant funds include $137,013.70 with matching funds of $45,671.23 for a total of $182,684.93. The grant period is from July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024. We have received this grant annually since 2005.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Pelisic just went through public safety. Do you have any comments?
Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, we heard it extensively. We wholeheartedly support it.
All right, thank you. Are there any other comments regarding ordinance number 1387-2023? Seeing no other comments, ordinance number 1387-2023 stands approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is ordinance number 1369-2023 by council members Hairston, Starr, and Griffin by departmental request, authorizing the directors of economic development and finance to enter into a job creation income tax credit incentive program agreement with the Cleveland Kitchen and/or its designee to facilitate the purpose and provisions of this ordinance. Director McNair, you want to introduce your entire team?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I am joined here today by my colleague Robin Brown from the Department of Economic Development, as well as Drew Anderson from Cleveland Kitchen and Nora Walsh from PMC, who's been assisting them throughout this process.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may for just a moment, and then I'll hand it over to Drew and his team to kind of talk and give you a little bit more information on Cleveland Kitchen, right? So very excited to be here today. I know that many of you remember at the end of last year, we passed what is now the Job Creation Income Tax Credit Program, which we're really excited about, which is a way for us to incentivize Cleveland companies that are growing or attract new companies into the city of Cleveland with a 50% income tax credit. That's a program that we're going to be using today. I think many of you know of it. 75th and Carnegie was created the Cleveland Food Hub as a way to start growing and incubating food-based production companies in the city of Cleveland. I think this is something that has really worked. Cleveland Kitchen was one of the initial tenants of that. This is a company that has been growing very quickly. They have gone from what was then Cleveland Kraut to now Cleveland Kitchen, and they are the #1 selling kimchi brand in the United States of America. They're the #4 selling pickle and the #1 sauerkraut as well. They are sold in all 50 states. Again, this is a company that has been growing. This is a company that was being looked at, being courted not just outside of the city of Cleveland, but through multiple states in the country, right? And so we're incredibly excited to have the ability to get them to come in here. And again, I think this is a great use of the Job Creation Income Tax Credit Program, which we're calling the Jacket. And with that, I will give it over to Drew and to Nora to say a little bit more about the company.
Sure. Thank you for having us here today. Just a little bit of high level on the company. We started almost 10 years ago at farmers markets, the Shaker Square Farmers Market being the first one. We were making sauerkraut and selling it out of barrels to the local community. We've since accelerated. We're in about 18,000 doors nationwide, Walmart being our largest customer. But we sell from Whole Foods all the way to Walmart and everybody in between, all 50 stores. We've grown this business to be, again, the #1 kraut and kimchi brand in the United States, and we're the #4 pickle brand now. Pickles was something exciting that we launched into in 2021 when Walmart asked us if we would make these types of products for them. During the pandemic, they had a lot of shortages, and we quickly knew that this was something we wanted to do for a while, and we accelerated that program. In 2022, we acquired a company in Northern California, Sonoma Brinery, who was a brand and a manufacturer and gave us that kind of manufacturing knowledge, operated that plant for about a year, and then we've made the decision to bring all that equipment, jobs, infrastructure back to Cleveland. So expanding our footprint on 77th and Carnegie in that building, or effectively doubling it, so we're adding about 30,000 square feet, mostly refrigerated warehouse, so we can have all of our products in-house and ship nationwide from one location. And that will add 80 jobs to the local economy, mostly from Ward 5 and the surrounding areas. We're very excited. We are the leading brand in the space. It's something that's homegrown, and it's a good story. It's been a wonderful ride from literally selling on the streets of Cleveland to now being on shelves in all 50 states with all the major retailers.
And Mr. Chairman, again, this is one point. This is a retention, right? You're talking about $3.3 million worth of payroll and 58 jobs that are currently on site that we get to keep. He mentioned that plant in Northern California, which are actually moving those jobs back here to Cleveland, Ohio, right? 80 new jobs that are coming in, and again, I think this is a great use of that the jacket, the Job and Creation Incentive Tax Credit Program. Previously, we would have had to use something like the JSIP program, which we talked about. So if you look at the estimated numbers in here of these 80 new jobs, it comes over the course of 5 years to approximately $177,000 and change. We would have actually had to write a check out of our own funds. And this way, it's completely invisible to us. When they file their payroll taxes on an annualized basis, those new jobs trigger this tax credit. So it is invisible to the city of Cleveland, but is a net gain from a tax perspective of the city, and it helps this company reinvest in the city and grow new jobs here.
Okay, great. All right. Sounds exciting. This is where the supermarket is at on,
That's right.
right there, right?
We're the largest tenant in that building.
Okay, great. Yeah, I've been in there to tour it a few times. Councilman Hairston, this came through DPS. Do you have any comments?
Thank you, Mr. President. This piece is supported by Councilman Starby. I believe this is in his ward. And if we can make sure we add him on to the ordinance, I think that was a request that I made.
He's on there.
Okay, he's not on the printed.
Yeah, they just added it on this version.
Yeah, I think I wrote it in.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure he's on there.
All right, so just make sure the staff that he's listed on the piece. He's in support, fully support as well, committee. Heard a presentation from the department director regarding not only Cleveland Kitchen, but there was another group who came in and sought this support from us as well, that we passed and support both organizations. There was a previous program that was similar to this that would have required us, as the director said, to give the cash kind of up front, right? And this allow us to support the businesses across the city in a different way that does not require us to write the check up front, which I think is a good thing for the city and also a good thing for the business as well. And the committee was fully supportive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, and Mr. Chairman, that our guest is going to make sure that we come tour the facility in addition to those who have already had an opportunity to tour the facility. So we'll let you know when that is.
Thank you. I have Councilman Kerry McCormick and Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. As I spoke to the City Development Committee, I just wanted to acknowledge Cleveland Kitchen, a great Cleveland company, great products. Your commitment to the city of Cleveland is clear. I'm really happy, Director and Assistant Director, that we're able to, I call you Assistant Director every time. I don't know your title. It's going to be Assistant Director, Project Manager. Okay. And so probably know more in that department than anybody else. So anyways, moving forward, appreciate the Economic Development's team, really your commitment to this company, because you can't think, in my opinion, more deserving company that's staying committed to the city. And I know Councilman Starr and Harrison have been working with you as well, but you're important to the entire city. And so really excited to see your growth, and I'm happy that the administration is working on ways to support that growth. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the Director, this has nothing to do with Cleveland Kitchen. This is just educating us on this income tax credit incentive agreement. Can you explain more of how it's going to work? I mean, if they're bringing in 80 employees, right?
Yes.
Is this something like payroll tax that they're getting a break on or something? Can you just explain how this is going to go?
Yes, sir. So through the chair to Councilman Casey, and I think this is one of the things that we really like about it, right? So this happens directly through the CCA, Division of Taxes. And so once they file the application with our department, and that goes down through CCA, when they file their payroll taxes on an annualized basis, and they do have to show the FTEs that are coming through there, it automatically triggers the credit and comes back directly to them. Right, so it kind of removes us as the middleman in that process, but it does allow for the department, right, to kind of look on an annualized basis and see if they are not meeting those requirements and kind of disengage from the agreement.
And then, Mr. Chairman, to the Director, in this case with Cleveland Kitchen, just because you're here at the table, how much are we talking? I mean, 80 employees, it's a lot. right?
Yeah, so
That's
through
pretty big.
through the chair to Councilman Casey, right? So it is a 50% income tax credit, right? So it depends on what folks are actually doing in payroll. So in this case, they're anticipating about $3.6 million in new payroll for those 80 employees, which, again, if that settles out, that's about $177,000, $188 over the course of 5 years, right? But it happens literally every year for a period of 5 years when you file your income taxes and show that, it automatically triggers and goes down.
So, Mr. President, to the director, in this case, 178,000 will go back to Cleveland Kitchen every year as a credit for the new employees that are being hired, correct? Not the original 58.
Through the president to Councilman Casey, that $177,000 is total on an annualized basis. So it's basically 1.25% of payroll on new employees. So again, $3.6 million payroll. If that's the full 80 employees, equivalates about $45,000 a year.
All right. And then, Mr. President, I forget your name.
Drew Anderson.
Drew, is this a program, would you be doing this if this program wasn't available to you? Or is this something that you needed in order to expand and bring these employees here?
So we did have multiple offers from other states to relocate, and obviously with our branding, we wanted to be here, and this really helped the story for us to stay here and to move all of the employees from the California location here.
Okay.
So it was a huge benefit.
And then one last question, Mr. President, to the director. Knowing that the majority of our income comes from income tax, right? Is this, and again, not picking on Cleveland Kitchen, is this biting our nose to spite our face? Are we cutting our general fund budget by having this type of initiative go through?
So through the president to Councilman Casey, I would say no, right? I think what this allows us to do is get much more aggressive in both keeping a company like Cleveland Kitchen in Cleveland and growing as opposed to moving to a state like South Carolina. But it also, I think, puts an open for business sign on the city of Cleveland, which can attract new companies into the city as a real incentive to come in here. And so, again, right now I'm looking at this as there's roughly $3.3 million in payroll that if they went to the state of South Carolina wouldn't be here today. This is also a great way to get $3.6 million in new payroll into the city. So I look at this as not losing that 1.25%. I look at it as a gain of 1.25% we otherwise wouldn't have, plus the retention.
All right, thank you. Congratulations, great job.
Thank you.
Councilman Michael Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I want to understand it. The total number of jobs will be what?
So through Council President to Councilman Polensek, we're looking at 80 new jobs and retaining 58 current jobs in the facility.
Okay. And so they'll remain at that present site on Carnegie?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as Councilman Casey just indicated, you see no negative impact upon the general fund budget as a result?
Through the
our
council,
income tax collection.
Through the Council President to Councilman Polensek, no, I do not. Again, I see this as additive. I see this as more taxes coming in. Frankly, again, food production is a place that I think that we can really win. I think a company that is growing in the way that Cleveland Kitchen is here, we're already trying to work with them on like how they expand and grow from here into different facilities within the city.
So the 80 jobs that are being brought here from California, and I'm sure they're happy to get out of California, but when will they be here?
Sorry, I don't know the decorum. Through the chair to Councilman Polensek. Only 4 or 5 of those people are actually moving from California. These are new jobs, so we're actively hiring to fill those 80 roles. Yeah, so those are Clevelanders.
Okay. I just know we were going to attract some new people because it seems like everybody's trying to escape that state. So, okay. And then my last question is this. I grew up on the east side. I know what fried chicken and greens are and pasta and meatballs, but what's kimchi?
Through the Council President to Councilman Polensek, kimchi is effectively Korean sauerkraut. So it's fermented cabbage, but it's spicier.
Okay.
It's a category that's growing 25% year over year in the United
Okay.
States. It has huge immune
Yeah.
gut system benefits, and my grandmother's Asian, and we grew up eating a lot of foods like this, and so it was a logical step for us after sauerkraut to go into kimchi.
Okay, so it's like an additive, like sauerkraut with sausages. This is added to something, kimchi. You don't eat it by itself, right?
Some people do for health benefits, but generally it's
Okay.
going on rice bowls, wraps, dishes,
Gotcha. Okay.
things like that. Yep.
I learned something new again today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
On that point, Councilman McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I actually just listened to a podcast about how new studies are showing that fermented foods can be some of the best anti-inflammatory foods you can eat. And of course, body inflammation can cause cancers or advanced cancers, as well as diabetes and other issues. So fermented foods are what we should be eating more of, apparently.
All right. Seeing no other questions regarding ordinance number 1369-2023 stands approved. Good luck and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Next up is ordinance number 1381-2023 by council members McCormick and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Port Control to exercise the second option to renew contract PS 2022-82 with Peregrine Advisors LLC to provide professional, financial, and accounting services for the Department of Port Control. Director.
Good afternoon. So this is 1381. 1381 first, correct? All right.
Yes.
All right. 1 second here. Okay. So good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Port Control has two items today. Item number 1381-2023 is requesting to exercise the second of 3 one-year options to renew the contract number PS 2022-82 with Peregrine Advisors LLC. They provide the department with financial and accounting services. Tasks that Peregrine has assisted with in the past are airline rates and charges development, rating agency requests, terminal modernization and development project assistance, and pro formas and projections for airline service and activities at the airport. Peregrine employs Penn & Associates, Inc. as subconsultants under the contract, and Penn is a certified DBE. We ask for your approval of this one-year extension.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Councilman McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was heard in Transportation Mobility. The director noted that they are pleased with the services being provided by Peregrine, and the committee recommended passage in finance.
All right. Any questions regarding ordinance number 1381-2023? Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1381-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. Next one is ordinance number 1382-2023 by council members McCormick and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Port Control to exercise the first option to renew contract number PL, or is that PI? PI 2022*014 with West Roofing Systems, Inc. to inspect, maintain, repair, and replace roofs or roof systems at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport and Burke Lakefront Airport. Director.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Port Control is requesting to exercise the first of 2 one-year options to renew the contract with West Roofing Systems, Inc. West Roofing provides the department with services to repair and replace roofs or roof systems at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport as well as Burke Lakefront Airport. West Roofing has replaced over 2.5 million square feet of roofing throughout the terminal and other buildings at CLE over the last several years. They have met the department's needs and have provided exceptional customer service, and we request your approval of this one-year extension, or exercising this first of 2 one-year extensions. Thank you.
Thank you. I am looking for your summary for ordinance 1382. What are their diversity, equity, and inclusion numbers?
DEI, do we have the, just one second. We'll
It
take a
says
look
total
at
number of employees. Okay, there it is.
Oh, you see it?
I think I have it. Total number
Okay.
of employees, 82. Number of employees that are minorities, 32. Number that are women are 9, but 0 Cleveland residents?
Thank you.
Is it, well, any reason why none of these folks are Cleveland residents? Or?
That I don't know, but we can get more information if you would like.
All right, okay, all right. Councilman McCormick, do you have any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, this was heard in the Transportation Mobility Committee regarding roof repair within the airport system. The director indicated that they are pleased with the services being provided by this company, and the committee recommended approval.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding ordinance number 1382-2023? Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1382-2023 stands approved. Please sign on. The next
Thank you.
ordinance is, thank you so much, Director. The next ordinance is ordinance number 1386-2023 by Council Members Spencer, Hairston, and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Directors of Public Works and Community Development to enter into an agreement with Paisano Properties, Inc. for the exchange of properties needed for the city's Lake Park Improvement Project and authorizing the mayor and the Commissioner of Purchases and Supplies to acquire and convey the properties. Directors and Ms. DeGenero.
Good afternoon, Council President and committee. We have this piece here. I'm actually just going to turn this over to Commissioner DeGenero, who's the expert on this.
Sure.
She's going to explain what's happening with this property swap.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to direct your attention to the map that's in your packet. There's like a lot of moving parts with this transaction, so it'll be easier if you kind of look at the map while I'm describing to you the transaction. The city is making improvements to Lake Park, and as part of the improvements, we intend to relocate the existing entrance that's on West 83rd Street, shown in pink on your map, to the north, to 2 land bank parcels. And the entrance, the intent is to make the entrance more welcoming, more accessible. There'll be new lighting, new signage, some benches, some landscaping. And the intention is to not have people continue to use the existing entrance. It's narrow, it's not well lit. So since it's no longer needed for public use, we intend to sell it to the owner of the property to the south, Paisano Properties Incorporated. He owns an apartment building, or they own an apartment building at that location. The existing entrance will be consolidated with their existing property to create a driveway and parking to the rear of the building. Meanwhile, Paisano also owns a little triangular-shaped piece near the new entrance, which is shown in blue on your map, which is needed. It looks insignificant, but it actually will help to make the entrance much, much nicer. So he owns that triangle. We need it. And at the same time, it so happens he's got a little driveway, like 2 feet of his driveway to the north encroaches onto the new entrance, those 2 land bank parcels. So we figured we would just swap the little strip of his driveway that encroaches for the triangular shaped piece that we need. So that'll just be an outright swap. The piece to the south that's shown in pink that will be sold to him will be sold at appraised value of $7,200. Yeah, I think that's all I have, but if you have any questions, happy to answer.
Thank you. Councilman Anthony Harrison, this was heard in DPS. Do you have any comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. This was heard and passed by DPS. This is not uncommon. We do these type of sales and swaps and gives and takes all the time as we try to improve different developments that we are, pursuing here in the city of Cleveland. This is one, again, as we heard from the director and the commissioner, will help with the entranceway of the park and help the overall development in a much meaningful way, more meaningful way than it already is with the tight entrance and the way it's all configured. So the committee was happy to support, and obviously Councilwoman Spencer is fully supportive.
Great. And that brings me to Councilwoman Spencer. Councilwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Chair Hairston. Yeah, this has been a long time coming. I want to thank the commissioner and her team very, very much for bringing us to this point. And the community advocated very strongly for an improved entryway to the park on West 83rd, and this piece of legislation is what will make that possible. So thank you to all involved, and I ask my colleagues for their support.
Thank you so much. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 1386-2023 stands approved. Please sign on.
Thank you.
All right, the next one is for the Highland Golf Course, and this is ordinance number 35-2024 as amended by council members Bishop and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend section 131.31 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976 as amended by ordinance number 99-2021 passed April 19, 2021 relating to Highland Park Golf Course rates. Director?
Yes, thank you
President.
again, Chair.
Mr. President,
Yes.
that's, we amended that piece.
Oh,
I don't know
so
if
I
you
need to
said
read
that
the
to me.
amendment.
Okay.
Make sure I read the amendment. Thanks for reminding me, Councilman Bishop. And is this the one that there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows? In section 1, add amended section 131.31C, lines 2 and 3, strike, and one other item.
Yep.
Is that the amendment, Council? Okay. All right, so the amendment has been read into the record. Please proceed.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and to the committee. I have here with me Abigail Paskey from the mayor's office. And Abigail's been very involved in this whole process with the transition of the golf course from city management to private management. We also have here Nick Bender, who is who's actually a part of the Troon management team. So I'm going to turn it over to Abigail and to Nick to let them just talk about what we want to do as far as the rates to help us be more competitive and help us with all the things we want to try to do at the golf course. Abigail.
Thank you, Assistant Director. Thank you, Council President. The changes in the rates for Highland Golf Course are based on a few factors: competitive market rates, data that they collected over the past year operating Highland Park Golf Course, and the value proposition that we want to maintain accessible golf for Clevelanders. So I will have Nick Bednar from Troon walk us through some of those changes.
Okay, thank you. So as Abby mentioned, it's been 3 years since we've raised rates, changed rates at Highland Park Golf Course. Our organization has operated Highland Park since May of 2023, so spent most of last season there, and we're able to learn the playing characteristics of the facility as well as its market position. We conducted a competitive analysis of over 20 golf courses in the region and to see where Highland Park ended up. And a few things that we wanted to make sure of as we looked at this was, number one, the sustainable future of the golf course. We've gone through a dramatic change in terms of golf demand over the past 3 years, as well as an inflationary time as well. So there are some rates that are projected to increase. There are also some rates that are projected to decrease based on the market analysis. And second key to us was maintaining the Cleveland resident discount. In the past, Cleveland residents have enjoyed a $2 discount on 18-hole rounds and a $1 discount on 9-hole rounds. With the rate changes, we wanted to make sure that the residents got the best deal possible and continued to enjoy the accessibility of the golf course. So we've raised the resident discount from $2 to $6 on 18 holes and from $1 to $2 on 9 holes. And lastly, we noticed early on that the rate structure was not as based on demand as we would like to see it. The weekend rounds were $1 more than weekday rounds. So in our business, Saturdays, Sundays, holidays are our busiest time. It made sense for price increases to be impacted more on our peak demand times. So you'll see those rates went up a little bit more than the weekday rates. In fact, many of the weekday rates came down in price.
Anything else?
I think that sets up the big picture, so I think you all have the chart if there are any specific questions.
So I've seen some of the presentation this morning. Just out of curiosity, how long do we anticipate? Well, first of all, before I go into that line of questioning, You also run Euclid, is the golf course Briardale?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what, out of that list that we seen earlier, what are your comparable golf courses that you also run? I know it's Briardale, but what other ones?
Sure. And we looked at the metro parks, which are highlighted on the competitive analysis there. Really, golf is a regional sport. Most golfers tend to play within 20 minutes of where they live. So based on the location of Highland, that's where our focus is. We did look at some of the top-end courses like Stonewater. That's not our main competitor, but it's important for just understanding where the entire market goes from top to bottom. You'll see on the presentation that Highland Park rates toward the lower end of the list in terms of pricing, which on one hand is good because that means it's very affordable, very accessible. However, we had fallen behind over the past 3 years with many other courses moving their rates forward as well.
Okay. How long do we anticipate that we're going to have to subsidize this more before you guys start making the profit?
Yeah, so our original pro forma was a 5-year plan. Our hope was to get to break even by year 3 or 4, and we are on target with that. In fact, our year 1 results were ahead of our original pro forma. So again, I mean, we have a lot of momentum going forward. We're still looking at year 3 or 4 operationally to be solvent.
Okay. All right, Councilman Bishop?
Yes, Mr. President, we vetted this in the Municipal Services Committee this morning. We recommend this for passage.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions regarding ordinance number 35-2024? Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 35-2024 stands approved. Please sign on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
All
Chair,
right.
May I quickly, while AD Laird is still here, may I quickly?
A.D. Laird?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I
giving us
simply
the-
wanted to state, representing Public Works here, just wanting to, on behalf of council, thank all of those who worked hard over the weekend to clear snow. Thank all the workers on our behalf. And just appreciate that from Public Works over the
Absolutely.
weekend.
Our people will be very happy to hear that, and I'll make sure that all of our drivers, laborers, and salt people who are removing salt, everybody, I'll let them all know. We truly appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. We all, on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for all the hard work.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we have ordinance number 39-2024 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Human Resources to employ one or more professional consultants to provide recruitment and staffing services, including consulting and direct recruitment for a period of 1 year with 3 one-year options to renew, exercisable by the Director of Human Resources. Director Cole.
Thank you, Chairman and Council. Yes, we are looking to establish a professional services contract with a recruiting and staffing consultant for the purpose of providing direct recruitment and consultation services for specialized positions. Currently, we do have a contract with a company called GovHR that is set to expire the end of August of this year. We are looking to establish a second consultant in the interim to help us with some other positions prior to the end of the current contract with GovHR. The consultant really is for purposes of assisting us with things like national searches or the ability to fill difficult positions, niche positions in information technology, or currently we're looking at one related to parks and recreation that will become a national search. But this is really for not the day-to-day, but the over and above in which we're having difficulty either filling the position or have to go nationally.
Okay, got it. All right, any questions regarding ordinance number 39-2024? Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to the Director. Director, how many consultant contracts does the Department of Human Resources currently have?
Through the chair to Councilman Casey, we have one contract with a benefits consultant, and I believe the other consultant contract is just for recruiting purposes at this point.
Is that the GovHR?
That's correct.
And then you indicated that the GovHR contract expires in August, and that you were looking for another one to do what in the interim?
So we're going to be looking to employee services to fill a couple of other positions in the interim. The current contract under GovHR will not cover the services that we require in the interim period. And our last renewal with GovHR ends the end of August. So this is an attempt to be able to issue an RFP, which we haven't done in, I guess it'd be 4 years, to establish a new consultant relationship and then utilize them to fill these hard-to-fill positions.
And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, so you said that this new one's looking more specifically toward Parks and Rec, correct? So you're going to have to educate me on Parks and Recs puts out a notice for employees for hiring, correct? And GovHR does that currently, correct? They run that through GovHR, however that works?
No, through the chairman to Councilman Casey. This is the one for Parks and Recreation. We're going to be looking for a specific position for them. It's a director position. And it's not currently utilized for that department, but we will be.
So, Mr. Chairman, to the director, what is GovHR? Is it only specific stuff? Why doesn't it do our whole employment system across the board for the city?
Through the chair to the councilman, no. You might be thinking of NeoGov. NeoGov is just our platform in which we post and fill positions. This is actually, GovHR is a consulting firm that actually helps us search for and obtain candidates for very specific positions that are hard to fill.
And this one that you're looking for, Mr. Chairman, to the director, is it just for the one position of the new director that you're looking for, whatever you're doing?
Through the chair to the councilman, it could be for this position or others that come in the period of the contract in which we have difficulty filling that we'd like to post through them for. So that's the only one that I know of right now that we'll be posting. The approximate cost that we've seen lately is right around $20,000. So it would give us the ability to fill 3 in a year, essentially.
And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, last question. Don't we have anybody in human resources that can do this without outsourcing it?
Through the chair to the councilman, we do, and we do attempt to, when it comes to national searches and or filling very specialized positions, particularly in information technology. A lot of times it requires the use of a consultant that can utilize all of their resources specifically geared towards those positions. So these aren't your standard run-of-the-mill. And I brought some examples, if you'd like, from ones we've done recently.
Well, and just to end my line of questioning, Mr. Chairman, to the director, are they going to go out and find that person, or is this just going to post it and let their national database or whatever know that the position is open?
Through the chair to the councilman, both. So we look for them to post it, do all the recruitment for it, to provide us with candidates and assist us with filling the position.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Don't see any other questions regarding ordinance number 39-2024. Stands approved.
Thank you.
Please sign on. Thank you so much. Council Peace, real quick. Ordinance number 40-2024 by Councilmember Griffin, an emergency ordinance authorizing the clerk of council to enter into an agreement with Western Reserve Land Conservancy, DBA Thriving Community Institute, to provide professional services regarding reforestation, demolition, and rehabilitation, green space restoration, vacant land restoration, and property information and code enforcement. This is the annual contract that we usually do with Western Reserve Land Conservancy. And does anybody have any questions regarding this contract? Not to exceed. It's really, to be honest with you, I didn't have them come in, but it's really routine. We usually do it up to 150 every year. So moved. All right, so seeing no other questions, ordinance number 40-2024 stands approved. And I will say for full disclosure, former Councilman Zone did ask me if he needed to be here, and I just told him I got it. Okay. All right, last ordinance, and I do believe we have that there is an amendment that someone would like to state. It is ordinance number 80-2024 by council members McCormick, House Jones, Hairston, and Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Community Development to enter into one or more agreements with the Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless and Metanoia Project, Inc. to facilitate seasonal winter shelter for the city's unsheltered residents during the winter season, which is approximately December 1, 2024 to April 10, 2024. And I believe that we cannot make an amendment at the table, but we can make sure that an amendment can be added by the time we meet tonight on the floor. But Councilman McCormick, if you want to add it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I spoke with our attorney, Rachel. She noted that because this piece has not been introduced, that we can't make an amendment to something that is not an active piece of legislation. It has not been introduced. However, what she noted is that the body wanted to recommend a change prior to introduction this evening that we could agree to introduce and pass pending a change made by the body. So it wouldn't be no action at the table, but we could discuss a change to be included at the intro and passage this evening, if that makes sense.
Yes. Councilman Polinsky.
But correct me, I think there would have to be a copy of the amendment on each person's desk.
So there,
Yeah.
so there's no amendment. It would just be through the chairman, added to whatever is going to be introduced this evening.
But
Correct.
All it is for discussion, we introduce and
Okay.
pass tonight. So basically, if we are talking about we would like to add this piece, it would just be as if it was just introduced and passed without an amendment. It'd just be a straight piece.
so who's going to add that provision, those sections?
We will make sure that we talk with Attorney Roberts. Are we going along the right path on this?
Yeah, I don't have, you are, and you've already talked to Rachel Nyberg, Scales about it. I haven't talked to her about it, but I don't have it here.
Okay.
But
All right. Here's if we could, because we got an amendment that we would like to be added to this legislation. But my point is, when it's introduced tonight, we want to have this language in there. But Councilman Harsh, can you at least state what the legislation is?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we would just add to that piece of legislation, which is 80-2024.
Yeah.
Excuse me, wrong one. An amendment, the organization shall report back to City Council every 30 days with an update on the number of clients served and a full accounting of expended funds. Just a transparency and oversight measure to have the recipient report back to council every 30 days with an accounting of funds and a report on clients served.
Okay. So we did ask Rachel to come down, but what we want to do, once again, let me make sure for clarification. This is going to be for introduction and passage tonight because this is a time-sensitive piece because we have homeless people that need support right now. So in part of this, because I'm just going to be honest and full disclosure, some council members had some real concerns about this piece of legislation for various reasons that I'll let them state. And sorry, what is your name again, ma'am?
Council President, my name's Emily Collins, Senior
Ms. Collins.
Advisor to Mayor Bibb.
Thank you.
Senior Advisor to Mayor Bibb.
Okay, so bottom line is there are some concerns, and as you know, there have been some seriously concerns about working this organization, and Here she is. She got a seat at the table. And the reason that Councilman Harsh has put this in place, or has asked that this be in place, which all the council agrees with, because this will give council reassurances that the money that we put forth to this organization will be utilized for the purposes that they are, which is homeless services. And how are they going to be doing the homeless services? Because quite frankly, this group in the past have taken money from the city and county and actually organize and use that same energy to work against council on different projects. And that's the concern. We don't want to fund an organization that's just going to use it for political purposes. So we just want to make sure that we can hold them accountable. But Ms. Nigro-Scalish, can you give us some guidance on what we're trying to accomplish?
Sure. So through the chair, this ordinance has not been introduced yet. The idea is to introduce it, and I believe the administration would like it passed tonight. But council would like a change made to this piece prior to introduction. So has this change been proffered yet? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So we'd like to offer to make this change to the ordinance before it's introduced tonight so that it can be introduced and passed.
Exactly.
So I guess the idea would be for the Attorney Roberts to take the change down to the Law Department and have them make the change in the ordinance itself. Have them make the change in the ordinance itself and then send it back up here for introduction this evening.
All right, so we all clear? Is everyone clear? Councilman Casey has a question. Clarify.
And I don't have a question on the clarification, but can we have a discussion on how the money's being spent?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes, we are. We just want to get this amendment out the way, but we definitely want to have a conversation on how the money's going
all
to be
right.
spent. Okay? So everybody understand what Rachel put forth, and Attorney Roberts, are we good?
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Okay, good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Nigro-Scalish. Okay, so we, the amendment on the floor has been moved and seconded.
It's discussion.
It's not changed? Okay, just the change? Got it. Okay, got it. Okay. All right, so now there's discussion on this piece of legislation, and I believe that Councilman McCormick, and I think Councilman Casey, and Councilman Palensi.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, even though this is not an amendment, I think just asking if the committee is generally okay. It seems like a pretty procedural reporting change. I haven't heard any objections from the committee. So that just assume that.
I'm not comfortable with introduction and passage.
Well, no. I'm
With
just
that,
talking
if
about
that's what you're talking
strictly on the Councilman Harsh's.
Oh, yeah.
I just wanted to put that, okay. No, Mr. Chairman, I just appreciate you putting me on the list here. I sat on the Office of Homeless Services Board in my previous term for 4 years. Have not been on the board for transparency purposes in the last 2 years. But understanding how important the seasonal shelter is for folks that are unhoused in our community. Metanoia operates one of the agencies in this ordinance heavily in my ward. They've been a really good partner, again, within the category of acute group of folks that are unhoused and need immediate assistance. So they operate in different faith-based organizations in collaboration, not-for-profits, to provide literally the basics so that folks don't freeze and other horrible things that could happen in this type of weather. So, Chair, I support this legislation, understanding that there are larger conversations about how to work on the unhoused systems and unhoused folks in our community. But again, I support this legislation to ensure that there is funding to welcome folks in from the cold tonight, right, and tomorrow, and in January and February and March, and as long as that seasonal shelter is operating. So again, I just wanted to speak in support of this, and again, I have extensive experience with Metanoia, who operates in my ward, and again, they kind of provide that real base layer to save people's lives in the immediate. So it's an important organization that provides basics for folks that are unhoused and experiencing homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman McCormick. Councilman Casey and Councilman Palensi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this money, Mr. Chairman, to senior advisor, is this money going to NEAC or is it going to Metanoia?
Through the council president to the councilman, the money will go to both. So NEOC and the Metanoia project are both facilitating seasonal shelter. Metanoia is providing seasonal shelter. The purpose of ensuring that NEOC is able to facilitate the provision of seasonal shelter is to make sure the entirety of the city can be covered and not just, for example, the west side. So allowing use of the funds, for example, in unique cases such as families who may need a hotel stay versus simply a cot. So care and not just comfort, but literally warmth in the cold can be provided as needed. So it's not necessarily a specific location, but to make sure that seasonal shelter can be available to unsheltered residents throughout the city.
Mr. Chairman, to our senior advisor, how much is going to NEOC, how much is going to Metanoia?
So through the chair to the councilman, it is $200,000 that we're anticipating to NEOC and $25,000 to the Metanoia project. And these were the identified gaps in funding to continue seasonal shelter from February 1st through April 14th.
And how much was going to Metanoia?
$25,000.
25? And what currently does NEOC provide for housing?
Through the chair to the councilman, I think your question was, what do they provide for housing, meaning shelter?
Shelter, okay.
So, my understanding is that NEOC provides for the security, will fund the security, food, supervision of seasonal shelter providers, such as those that have operated at Denison.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, to our senior advisor, that's NEOC and you're talking Denison Avenue, right? The one on Denison Avenue?
UCC Denison.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Anything on the east side?
That's a great question. The idea behind the contract to ensure that full coverage of the city is available requires that anyone on the east side who's encountered as part of our contract that we already have with NEOC for outreach has shelter. So for anyone on the east side who is not able to get to a west side sheltering location, they need to transport them or get them a hotel.
All right, and then when you, Mr. Chairman, to our senior advisor, when you talk hotels, do you know if NEOC has a contract with the hotel? What hotels are they being stayed at? Do we know, are they getting a special rate? I mean.
Yeah, through the chair to the councilman, they have pre-existing relationships with hotels that have operated during COVID in the same method. And I don't know which ones. Yeah.
And we don't know if any, how much, if any, of the 200,000 is going toward hotels as opposed to shelters.
Through the chair to the councilman, I don't think we are planning to break down the required spend in that way.
Okay.
But I'm happy to hear if you suggest that we do.
I think we suggest that we do then.
A percent, and you're saying a percentage to be spent on hotels
Right, right.
as a preference?
I just want to make sure that, it's really, it's a hard situation to be into, right? Because everything that Councilman McCormick says, I think everybody at this table echoes, but then the same thing that Council President Griffin said, I think everybody echoes too. And I just want to make sure that we take care of our unsheltered individuals, but that we're doing it with the right people, right? And the right organization, and that we're going to actually get what we pay for and what we're supposed to, and not other activities.
Through the chair to the councilman, I very much appreciate what you're saying, and I think you are absolutely correct that transparency, data transparency, and transparency in use of funds is critical in this space, and absolutely something that I'm willing to, hear that we can ensure in contracting for things like seasonal shelter.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Mike Polisic, and then Councilwoman Jenny Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues. I think it's been echoed by my three colleagues that have spoken before me. Is there a reason why NEOC is not at the table?
Through the chair to the councilman, I don't think there's any reason other than they approached us with a proposal to fund seasonal shelter that they understood was ending as of February 1st, if not for the help of the city. And I'm happy to, so I think I didn't know that I needed to be at the table at this time, so I probably didn't tell them that they needed to be at the table. So
Yeah,
maybe my mistake.
I would like them to be, because, I don't know what the heck they do, quite frankly. I think Councilman Casey touched on, I don't know what they do on the east side except cause problems. And I'm very adamant about that. I mean, I don't know what they do. And they receive funding, and I couldn't tell, if my life depended on it, besides causing problems or trying to agitate council members, I don't know what else they do. And so, I just, in a way, again, had this gone to committee, obviously this is by by administrative request. I'm assuming the mayor supports this, correct?
Through the chair to the councilman, yes.
Okay. So we're contracting with NEOC, and they in turn are working with this other group that identified by Councilman McCormick, which he speaks highly of. And so they're going to pay for folks that are presently homeless to stay in hotels overnight? Is that what I'm to assume here?
Through the chair to the councilman, I appreciate the questioning about the services provided, and I think what you're asking is what will these funds accomplish for our unsheltered residents? And my understanding is that seasonal shelter is a constant need in Cleveland that is facilitated by a select number of providers, and NEOC is able to ensure that at least 70 beds are available, either through hotel stays or otherwise, to unsheltered residents experiencing homelessness on the east and west sides of Cleveland.
Okay. Well, as you've heard, and I would ask my east side colleagues that are here to chime in, if anyone can tell me what they've done on the east side. Well, that's exactly. I don't know what they've done on the east side of the city to help anyone who's homeless. And so, and then I'll let my other colleagues respond. I just want to make, I'm going to be very blunt here. My political correctness is long gone here. I want to make sure that we're not going to see a tent city in this city. I'm going to make that very adamant. I don't want to see what I see in San Francisco and some of these other cities. If we're going to try to get homeless people off the streets, then we need to do that. But what I found from my own engagement, a lot of the homeless folks do not want to go into shelters. They do not want to go into shelters. And yet, the county has been working to house people. Obviously, the city, NEOC has been received funding. And I just want to make sure that once this is passed, if it passes, Mr. Chairman, that we're not going to see a tent city spring up here in a downtown area or wherever. That's not the intention of this legislation. I want to hear that from you, Ms. Collins.
Through the chair to the councilman, I think you're absolutely right that this is about ensuring either shelter or a pathway to housing. And we have no interest in furthering unsheltered living situations.
Okay.
Our interest is in ensuring a pathway to housing exists. And I think it's correct that we need to spend much more time thinking through how we ensure that housing outreach is part of the outreach services provided in the city of Cleveland.
And at the same time, mental health services and
Absolutely.
help, because we understand drug addiction services, et cetera, because we know many of these folks. But I mean, we're all concerned, especially in this extreme deep freeze, about people that are homeless. And we're all concerned, especially people with children, extremely concerned. But I want to make sure that we're directing it to the right place. And I keep saying to was there anybody else besides NEOC that we could have funded?
Through the chair to the councilman, not to my understanding. And I think your highlight of the need for innovation in this space and to make sure that we are raising standards and meeting standards that other cities have reached is part of what we intend to do here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what they do. My experience with them has not been good. I'm just one East Side councilman. That's my observation and my opinion. And I want to make sure, and I'm hearing at the table from Ms. Collins, that we're not going to see a tent city or tent village created, Mr. Chairman, as of us taking this action. That's going to be important to me and important to, I think, this council and our citizens. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and I think that's one of the beauties of having that 30-day report, that we will get a chance and a full accounting on how all the money is being spent. Because I'm also very interested, as a follow-up, if you can get it, which hotels they have a contract, because I've just been told through a couple of my sources that the hotels have been nixing those contracts. And I just want to make sure, once again, that the money's going towards what they say it's going to be used for, okay? I have Councilwoman Spencer Conwell Hairston.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think this is important discussion today. I do want to say that in Ward 15, NEAC has been a very important partner. We have had many instances of unhoused individuals, residents contacting us because they are concerned about those individuals, and the NEAC outreach workers have done what the council office cannot do, which is try to reach those individuals and connect them with housing. But I do think this is an important discussion, and I'm really grateful for the addition made to this piece, because I think that the reporting that will come back to council will be really important for understanding this issue. I did want to ask through the chair to Ms. Collins, I believe you're relatively new to your position, and I think I have a two-pronged question. Would just like to hear a little bit more about the purpose of your position, specifically as it relates to homelessness. And then this feels kind of like a fire drill, right? Like money's running out, the clock is ticking down. Is this something that, how do we not make an emergency out of emergency shelter going forward? Has the city had a role in funding it traditionally? Does the administration propose putting this in the 2024 budget proposal?
Ms. Collins.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, thank you for those questions. They're all very important, and I'm going to try to hit on each of them. If you would remind me if I don't hit one of them, please do. So my role is as senior advisor to the mayor for major projects. We are very aware that there are some projects that deserve a lot of attention and cross-departmental coordination that aren't hyper-focused on one thing, such as the West Side Market. So I am working on many things. One of them is homelessness and the city's response to specifically unsheltered living conditions. And coordinating our response not just among city departments, but among community organizations and the county. So I think that's a fairly unique, role to play when so many actors are involved. I'm also working on projects involving lead, and it seems like there are ideas that come up often for additional projects, but those are two big ones. I've been here since October 20th and have been having lots and lots of conversations with some of the actors within this, not just the continuum of care, but also community organizations and businesses that are concerned. I think we are seeing more tents, and that is a reason for concern. So we're working on our strategy, and I think we're going to have something much more holistic and involved to announce in the very near future as far as a response goes. The city would like to provide leadership in this space. I think there were some other questions, if you wouldn't mind reminding me.
Yeah, clarifying, I think going forward, clarifying the role of the city's realm of responsibility. I know the county has long had an Office of Homeless Services and a plan, but also just Is this the first time that city funding has been used for seasonal shelters? Is this a one-time new action that the city is taking?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, so yes, it is about defining the city's role and in taking a greater leadership role, knowing that our residents are sleeping on the streets. I think is a role that many other cities have taken given the increase in unsheltered homelessness. So we're looking to follow suit and make sure that around 250 unsheltered residents can indeed find a pathway to housing. So that's the role we're interested in taking, and any future steps will be in line with that and what other cities have done. Has the city in the past, so I can't go as far back as perhaps some in terms of the history. I've heard from some providers that the city was much more involved decades ago. But my understanding is that the city has not been involved in unsheltered homelessness much beyond federal funding opportunities in the past. But we're seeing this as a crisis that can be met with strong action and an all-in response, and we can see results. So I think we're looking to take a leadership role.
Thank you. I look forward to the proposed plan, and I'd like to thank my colleagues for the addition to the legislation so that council will hear back on a regular basis about this. Thank you.
Thank you. And I apologize, I do have to make a run real quick. I'm going to turn it over to Majority Leader Carrie McCormick, and then I know we have Councilman Conwell and Councilman Hairston on this, but I have to say this, and I told the administration this, we really struggled with this. We don't feel like it's a coherent strategy, and this is no reflection on you, you just got here. We don't feel there's a coherent strategy on the homeless issue. There's a lot of gaps in the service delivery. This thing where we just got one option of one group or one organization that quite frankly gets government money and then utilizes it for a lot of politics and a lot of political stands. And I struggled with this one, but what I struggle with more is the homeless people that are out there in 0-degree weather and need people out there advocating for them. So I never let politics get in the way of the need for people to receive services in the city of Cleveland. But this group has done some irreparable harm when we and others have to come to back and fund them, only to turn around and watch them weaponize it against us. So all I can say to you is that that's one of the reasons why we want to monitor this very close. I don't have no problem funding organizations that are doing the mission and the work, but as you can see, many people do not understand what they do, and every time we see them popping up, it's something negative, whether it's Councilman Polensek working over in the Lakeshore area to try to come about a solution, or Councilman McCormick who's been working on things, or the rest of this body. And then I think it's woefully deficient on what they're doing on the east side. And I don't know why, but that's something that at some point in time I hope we can get addressed as well. So I look forward to continue to work with you. I'll turn the rest of the meeting over to Councilman McCormick. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Council President. I've got Councilman Kevin Conwell.
Thank you very much. I'm going to echo a little bit what Councilmember Mike Polensek was narrating to you, especially on the east side. We have a lot of homeless children. And so when you look at their test scores, they're just going from school to school. They have no resources. You even have some homeless children that's inside the open, vacant, and vandalized houses. When we board them up, they take the boards off, and they're trying to do whatever they can do on the east side. We need resources in Glenville, Collinwood, and Huff, just like what's going on the west side. I mean, children, when you go into Glenville or Collinwood School, high school, and you look at their test scores, and that's because you have some kids just homeless. But no one talk about the homeless children that's there, and they need to be into the plan and through the chair, and we need to document children that's homeless in the city of Cleveland, and how can we work with that through the chair.
Through the chair to the councilman, I appreciate your concern for not just homelessness as a general matter, but homelessness on the east side and youth homelessness. I
Right.
think that's exactly right. There are gaps. There's no question about it, and that's exactly why the city is looking to stake a claim to that leadership role. If we want to make sure that the east side has sufficient services, I think it's up to us to make sure that that happens. Seasonal shelter is one of the things that we want to make sure functions, and we want to make sure it functions for all of the city. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. I think we need to do more for youth homelessness, absolutely, throughout the city, honestly, but especially in historically underserved areas, no question.
You know what, Mr. Chair? The administration, what is it, monthly or quarterly, they're bringing us back an evaluation? Is that true? Is it monthly or is it quarterly?
Mr. Councilman, the request here by Councilman Harsh is monthly.
All right, in that monthly request, footnote if there's any children, because we need to track that. You know, Mr. Chairman, when we look at the school test scores, some of these homeless children, they move around from Glenville to Collinwood, to East Tech, to the West Side. I remember this homeless student, I think he was at Glenville, and he would study inside an open, vacant, vandalized house. But he was so determined, he ended up going to, what's that, it's prestigious, Harvard School. But this guy was homeless. And everybody talked about him. And the story came out, I think it was 4, maybe 5 years ago. And it always made me think about the homeless children. As a matter of fact, I think it was back in November, they had Youth Homeless Day. It was a national day. They were discussing homeless and the youth. Remember that? You can look that up.
Through the chair to the councilman, I don't recall it, but I'm glad that you're telling the story, and I will look it up.
Yeah, look it up. And so we need a footnote that, council member, in your amendment. All right. Thank you very much.
Excuse me. Thank you, Councilman Conwell. Councilman Harsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think since we're just having this discussion now, I'll just throw in a few thoughts too. I think when the dust settles, we're going to find that the increase in tent street side camping in Cleveland is a result of 3 things. One is the airport situation. People were asked to stop staying at the airport, and they did. So that put a whole bunch more people needing to go somewhere. The construction along the Irishtown Bend disturbed a number of people that were staying down there, and for lack of a better term, out of sight, out of mind, so that created a group of people. And the third factor is that somebody is giving them tents. These folks are not going down to Steel Yard and buying tents. They aren't, purchasing these on their own. Somebody is giving them tents. And so they're taking advantage of these tents on the side of the street, the only place they have really to go. And this is an unfortunate problem, and I suspect that we're going to pass this unanimously tonight because there's an emergency need to help people get out of the cold. But my concern, Mr. Chair, is that the continuum of care that has been so developed over the last couple of decades is focused on getting people off the streets into shelters where we can start to grasp what their needs are and start to treat them like human beings and get them into permanent shelter, whether that's transitional now or a voucher system, but moving them through the continuum begins at the shelter systems where we can actually start to get to know who people are. The people giving them tents might feel that they're doing something good, and during the summer, it might be a nice, easy option for somebody, but it's actually causing harm. I was at NEOC's remembrance for homeless people who passed throughout the year, and they were talking about a gentleman who's in the hospital clinging to his life because the tent he was in caught fire, and he nearly died. Wow. Those things are not designed for fires for warmth or fires for cooking, and the tent he was in caught fire. I also heard people talking about people in tents being assaulted. There aren't windows on a tent. You don't know if you're safe in your surroundings. You don't know if there's somebody right outside. You have no idea. You can't even keep an eye on the people around you. Whoever is handing out tents, we need to talk to that organization, that group of people, about the difference between short-term gain and long-term pain, and how good intentions can lead to bad outcomes. because we need to treat people like humans and get them indoors where it's not freezing. And so I think we're going to support this unanimously, but I'm glad that my colleagues are supporting the effort to make sure that we're accounting for these funds, to make sure that they're spent, but also to grasp how the money is needed. Is it going to hotels? Is it going to shelters? Is it going to expand permanent long-term solutions? Or is it just going to do temporary? Is it a particular hotel that we're working with that has some kind of option available that we should know about? So, Mr. Chair, I know that's more of a rant, and Ms. Collins, I know that we're going to talk later this week in depth, but I have actually slept on the street with homeless people. In the winter of '99, I pitched a tent in Public Square to protest Mayor Mike White, who was kicking homeless people off the street because they were sleeping on heating vents. And we said maybe they need warm places to sleep rather than being illegalized on the street. And so I've been out there in the cold with folks, and I know how inhumane it is to ask people to sleep on the street. So I have no qualms at all in directing city funds to help get people off the street. But we need to look seriously at our partners in this and make sure that they understand the consequences of actions that don't serve that same long-term goal. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and I look forward to getting this together for passage tonight.
Thank you, Councilman. I've got you, Councilman. Thank you, Councilman. And I'll just note that I had a pleasure meeting with Ms. Collins last week, and I really appreciate the focus on the comprehensive plan because, quite frankly, I'm pleased that County Executive Renee and Mayor Bibb are really committed to this, but historically, there wasn't a comprehensive plan, and a lot of that was talked as our current representative on the Office of Homeless Services Board. That was discussed a lot on that board previously, but it takes political will, and it takes people from the very top to say this is a priority, let's get it done, and also let's work together. Key piece. So having someone that can hopefully help thread those relationships is going to be critical. Councilman Conwell, you had a point?
Yeah, other funding streams like the Adams Board, if they have a surplus, so we might have some other issues that we could look at. The Adams Board might come in and help. Through the chair to Ms. Collins? Okay.
Through the chair to the councilman, I appreciate the idea behind diversifying funding streams, and I think it's good. My anticipation for this realm of seasonal shelter is that the city should participate in it for the next 2 years until something more permanent comes online. And we're working strongly with the county to make sure that something more permanent comes in line. I don't think this is a space that we want to continue to participate in.
Yeah, so let me ask you this last question. We look at the Adams Board. We know that the state, what they're doing, their operating dollars right now is from the state. Have we reached out to the state for help also? Through the chair. Through the chair to the councilman, there have been state funds provided for a variety of programs and services in this space. Rapid rehousing is the one that comes to mind most recently, which we have also funded with federal HUD dollars, and rapid rehousing is a critical component of part of the larger plan. So there is state funds, but not necessarily for the seasonal shelter space, as I understand it. Now, you know, the schools, they're underused, utilized. You know, they close at a certain time, you got all that space there, and then you have some schools, nobody's there. Have we thought about looking at schools to use the property of the schools through the chair?
Through the chair to the councilman, that has not been an idea that's been presented to me, and we would have to think through overnight sheltering within the schools from a variety of perspectives, land use, zoning, you know, all of the above. But it's a good idea, and I'm happy to, you know, pursue that line of questioning.
Yeah, we could look at contingencies. You have some schools that, councilman, they're there. No one is there in the schools. Probably we can manage it, put systems in place, but you know where I'm at. You got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman, and I completely agree with you on the schools. And I remember back to my time running Near West Recreation and how hard of a time it was to get those damn gyms open for our kids to play in. So I agree with you. We got to expand that conversation. I think it's really important.
Yeah, systems in
Do we have
place.
any additional questions on 80-2024? Okay, so as a reminder, this is to be entertained by the entire council this evening for introduction and passage. And I want to refer back to our Assistant Law Director to ensure that you've got the language you need from Councilman Harsh to be included prior to introduction. Is that correct?
That is correct, Chair.
All righty, thank you so much. So this will be entertained by the entire council with Councilman Harsh's as well as Conwell's suggestions incorporated into the legislation. Thank you. I've got one more piece for entertainment this evening as intro and passage. Director, come on up. This is legislation regarding food shop licenses, fees, categories, and fees that the director discussed with the council president. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, proceed, director.
And through
With our
to the
chair.
chair and with the chair,
Okay.
Councilman Conwell.
Go ahead, director. This is 81-2024.
Thank you. Thank you for considering this, council. So we passed our annual food fees October 2023 with legislation that's on there. And thank you.
What is this number again?
And this is-
81-2024, but this is a walk-on to be considered this evening for passage and adoption, or for introduction and passage.
Thank you, Chair. So we passed 1183-2023 through Health Committee and Finance Committee, October 23, 2023. The Ohio Department of Health asked us to change 3 of our 20 fees by $1. And so this would be an amendment to change fees, for example, for risk level 1 food service operators less than 25,000 square feet from $114 to $115. And there are 2 other examples of $1 fees that we're changing.
Thank you. So, director, how does that happen? Do we establish the fees and they review them and say, no, you got to do this or that? Can you explain that?
Absolutely, yes. So there's a cost methodology that we calculate all of our labor hours, our total costs, benefits. We put all that into a formula, comes out with a fee. We come to you, pass it for legislation. At the same time, we pass it down to the Ohio Department of Health so that they can review. This year, the Ohio Department of Health reviewed and said that they would have rounded a couple of numbers differently, and so they suggested fees of $100 off from what we suggested for 3 of our 20 fees.
Okay, thank you, Director. Councilman Conwell, this was to be routed through your committee. Do you have any comments on 81-2024?
So, Mr. Chairman, the director and I met this afternoon, and stands approved.
Thank you.
I ask my colleagues to support it, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments on 81-2024? Again, this will be considered by the entire body this evening for introduction and passage. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
All righty, hearing no other business.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
I need people help at this table. And I need you to listen, Anthony Harrison, Councilman. Sickle cell anemia was cut out of the block grant money. And I've been championing it with the council president. And I'm asking for my colleagues to put in some dollars to help us to support sickle cell anemia. It's a disease that affects African Americans, Latinos, as well as people in the Caribbean. If you can give us whatever, $1,000, $500, whatever the case may be, we would appreciate it.
I just had to do a swap for CDBG, so I
They
actually
tell
don't,
me.
I don't even know if I have a dollar
I
in
looked at
that
your
account.
when I wasn't in here. Yeah,
I don't even know if I have a dollar in that account, but
You don't
I'll
have a
find out.
dollar. You got 0. So I know what everybody got.
Well, I have the money that we switched, but I don't know if
Yeah, you don't
All
have
right, thank you, Councilman. Appreciate that. Any additional comments for the Finance, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee?
All right, thank you.
Hearing none, this committee is adjourned.